Father, we thank you this day. We thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. We thank you for this meeting. We thank you for those who have showed up. Thank you for our county, our country. And we thank you, God, most of all for you. Lord, I pray that you go with us to this meeting, lead, God, direct, and we give you all the praise and glory. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. We will now call the Swain County Board of Commissioners work session to order, September the 24th at 2020 at 6 o'clock. And we will go with the pledge, sir. Thank you.
Basic colors. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. If I feel like I'm rushing tonight, I've already gotten my orders that this is supposed to be a short meeting, so. Having said that, we will move on down to items 2. Do we have any reason to readjust the agenda tonight? Okay. Anyone have any? Okay, good. We have the Board of Elections update, and they've got a job on their hands this November, I'll tell you that. So, Chuck, I'm sorry, Mr. If you will.
Well, I think we're social distance enough. Maybe I can pull this down where you can hear me. I just want to give you some important dates.
Okay.
And let you know what's going on at this time. Of course, absentee voting started on September 4th, and the voter registration deadline.
Mr. Chairman, we're getting feedback.
Yeah.
Excuse me just a moment.
Okay, and let you know what's going on at this time. Of course, absentee voting started on September 4th, and the voter registration deadline.
Apologies, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
well,
Please
before I
go
go
ahead.
on, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the invitation to come speak with you all tonight. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I appreciate the job you do, and Mr. County Manager, and, you know, we need to partner with you in giving the people of Swain County the best Board of Elections that we can have, and best election office we can have.
Right, I agree.
You know, I believe that everybody in this county, regardless of their political affiliation or their beliefs, has a right to vote. And, you know, that's our standard, and we're going to stick by that standard. And I don't speak for the board on very many issues. I usually just speak for myself, but that's one issue that we've discussed many times in our bipartisan board. So we want to make sure that the elections are fair and free, and that everybody has an equal opportunity to vote in this county. That's what people that have gone before us have fought and died for, and I believe in that. All right. Absentee voting is going on at this time. Currently, as of today, we've had 716 absentee requests. 246 of those have already been returned. The voter registration deadline to vote in this coming election is October the 9th. That'll be the voter registration deadline. One-stop voting, which will take place at Birdtown and out at the election board, starts on 10/15. It's just a personal opinion. I would encourage anybody that has a chance to vote early in the one-stop, do that. That's when I think the lines will be less long and just more convenient. October 27th is the last day that you can request an absentee ballot by mail. And one-stop voting, like I said, begins on October 15th and it ends on October 31st. That's pretty much where we're at right now.
Okay.
We will be meeting weekly. 'Cause it's just that time of year, and we have been meeting. And I'll give you just a little general information about how absentee voting works. I think there's some misconception out there that those just get mailed out in North Carolina. That's not really how it happens. You have to fill out an application before you ever get an absentee ballot. And that application comes back in, is reviewed by the director and her staff. And when those absentee ballots come back in, they're in an official envelope. And every member of the Board of Elections initials that envelope when they're satisfied that that criteria has been met, that there's a voter and a witness and 2 signatures. And that's how that works. So you have to go through a process to get that absentee ballot. You just can't call out there and say, send me an absentee ballot. It doesn't work that way. You have to have an application filled out and certified as a registered voter of Swain County before those are ever sent out. And every board member, we do not look at the ballot, but we look at the envelope that it comes back in on to make sure that the signatures are where they're supposed to be. And each ballot has a witness or where's my man? It's been notarized, one of the 2. If you don't have a witness, you have to have it notarized. So that's pretty much how that works. One-stop voting, as I said, will begin on October 15th in Birdtown and at the election office. Monday through Friday, that will be 8:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. On Saturday, the first 2 Saturdays, it will be 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. The last Saturday will be 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And the state, we have some flexibility, but not a lot. They set those dates. That comes from the State Board of Elections. I don't really have anything else for you. I brought a couple of things I'll leave with you. These are available, by the way, at the Board of Elections office. There's a sample ballot here and a date for that one-stop voting.
Okay.
I'll pass that around. Y'all can keep those, make a copy for yourself, whatever you want to do. Got with me tonight our Deputy Director, Dean Triplett. He's new to the team out there, and we have confidence in him. He's very smart, very articulate, and I feel like he'll do a great job for us and already has been. That's really where we're at, and if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Questions?
Thanks for the information.
Hey, I appreciate y'all having us. Dean, you have anything you want to add?
No, I'm good. If you guys don't have any questions.
Well, if you have any questions, please call us, please come by. That information I gave y'all is available to anybody. That's for the public. We keep those out there. And please call the office if you have any questions, and we'll do everything we can to assist you.
So anyone listening to you tonight, Chuck, who wanted the information that you just gave out, you have handouts out at the office?
That's available.
Okay.
And we'll make that available. We have sample ballots and the dates are available. So it's a
Very good.
lot of early voting hours available, long hours. And it's tough on our people, but they're committed, and we've got some good people that have volunteered to help us and come on board because we do expect a bigger than normal turnout for this election.
Well, I agree that you got a good staff.
We do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, both
You don't have any-
Chuck and Dean. Sorry?
Thank you, Mr. County Manager. If you don't have anything else for us, we're going to abscond. Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, we
Sir.
do have, the school system is here tonight. We didn't have it on the agenda, so.
I'm sorry, you have what?
The school system is here tonight to do a presentation also, and it's not on our agenda.
Can we put them on the F?
Yeah.
Is it, what, is it an update or is it what are we doing tonight?
Follow up on what I brought to you last time of the year, here, just to clarify 2 questions, one Jamie had, one that you had. There's some work on those, so that you have to
Can we move them to B, and then, is that okay, gentlemen, if we move them up to school system to B instead of F? Okay. You're on school system.
The only reason that I'm here this evening is, as I said, just to follow up on some of the things that were mentioned the last time that I was here giving you an update. On the chalkboard, can I, Mr. Chairman, may I walk to the chalkboard, please?
Sure, sure.
On the chalkboard is a plat, sort of, engineer's design of what we're doing at the high school. And I told you that one of the big issues that we have right now is getting the parking and the drop-off worked out. And this is a full-scale copy that came to me the day after I was with you last time.
Okay.
This is the road that we have been using for traffic in front of the high school for 40 years, okay? This area here, not in this shape, but in this place is where we've been parking buses for 40 years, okay? This road here, which continues out down through here, goes out to Bryson Branch, okay? This is where buses for years have exited in the afternoons. They would probably come in this way, come in, drop off, actually back in here, and then they would exit out that way. What we're going to do is make this road off of Bryson Branch the entrance for the public, okay? And the goal will be in the mornings for parents to come in and to stop somewhere in this area and then turn this thing, and then turn this into a 2-lane drop-off with 5 spots, and then the cars will come back around and then exit out onto Bryson Branch, okay? Now, if folks need to come in and to park, this area will be a fairly large parking area with a sidewalk that travels all the way into what is going to be the new administration, which is actually going to be the front entrance of the school from now on, okay? Are you following with me? Now, this will continue to be used by our staff and also by our buses. That's the bus entrance and the bus exit from now on. We are installing a gate that will be an automatic gate right here. We're having that priced now, and it is designed so that it will have a sensor on it so that if a bus is coming in, it would automatically go up. And if a car is coming in, they'll have to have a key card at some kind of a monitor in order to get in after about 8:30 in the morning. Before that, we'll leave it open so it won't be working all the time, all teachers. And I'm not sure if we're going to allow students to come back this way anymore. I think probably it's just going to be buses and faculty. Of course, we've got this parking area down here that's gravel that we'll be able to use for students, and we will still have the parking area up here next to the stadium, although we're working exceptionally hard to try and not use that parking for students or change the way that they're crossing the road. We're really concerned about that. Is it okay? But I wanted to bring that to you to show you the extensiveness of the changes that we're going to have to put in place in order to complete this project. And that will be probably about the last thing that happens before we're able to enter the building and really begin to use it. And I'll just be straight with you, I don't see that happening before November 1st at this time. I just don't think that everything that needs to be done can be accomplished by then. But I'm not construction. I don't know. I just know that this road right here has a lot of work that's got to be done because it's a foot too high right now, okay? So I wanted you to see that, and I'll leave that up there so you can look at it after the meeting if you want to. The other thing that I wanted to address with you all, Danny, is you asked how many students are having to leave home to find connectivity right now, and we sent out a survey to our teachers, both for remote and also for face-to-face. And I have numbers for both of those. And I'll tell you that the face-to-face numbers are probably incomplete. All of our teachers didn't get back to us. So if you look over on the right, the total of 66 is probably low. I wouldn't say that it is exceptionally low, but that doesn't have any high school numbers in it right now. So I think that you could probably, I believe 20 more, 25 more wouldn't be out of the question. Swain, the virtual students, we know that there have been 63 that have reported that they have to leave to get connectivity, okay? That is actually below what was projected in the survey that was put out at the beginning of this semester, where we found that about 20% said they did not have connectivity at home. Right now, it appears to me that we're looking at about 10%, maybe 12% of our students who are having to leave to find connectivity. And we're making exceptional efforts. Karen Cook is making exceptional efforts to provide connectivity for those homes. If you'll look at the numbers there, we have 295 hotspots now that are available for students to check out. They work very well. Kevin alerted me to somebody this week that needed one. I went and got her one. She took it home, turned it on the next morning. She sent me an email and said, "It is working like a dream. My son can do his homework at home tonight." So we have that opportunity. Those have unlimited data, and they're at no cost to the parent. We also have 50 that have limited data, and what that basically means is the speed will slow down when they hit their data cap, okay? And that can be a problem if you're using video, but I don't think that that's going to be that big of a deal right now. That's 300 and something. We are going to request another 150 to 200 of those first hotspots. They came to us from the Hometown Initiative. It's out of the governor's office, and I think that we could twist their arm and persuade them to give us some more. I believe that we're going to be able to take care of all of those needs by using those. Of course, there are still some places we call black holes where no signal gets in or gets out, okay? So I wanted to bring that to you and address that question that you had,
Yeah,
okay?
that'll be helpful for the broadband committee too.
Okay.
To have those numbers.
Do you have any other questions about that, or does anyone else have questions about that?
I've got one I didn't think to ask. The number of students that do not have cell service. Now, I know we got the hotspots, but I know that's a problem if you don't have cell service. So
I don't have that number
those
right now.
numbers. Okay.
And we can reach out and we can work on finding that as well. That's not a question that we have asked yet.
Yeah.
You know, when you create surveys, Danny, you learn that there are ways to ask questions, and when you get done, you wish you'd ask them in just a little bit of a different way, so you can get that level of information. That's not a question that we've asked yet, okay? But we'll work on that. Dr. Bushyhead, you asked about filtering in the schools, and if I seemed abrupt in my answer at the last meeting, I apologize for that. I didn't mean to, but I hadn't thought about that, to be honest with you. We've been operating with a MERV 8 filter at a recommendation from our engineers. And we've been using that for several years. In fact, we just ordered an entire shipment that will probably take us through 6 months. We're changing those probably 3 times a year during the school year right now. However, after your question, I had Randy go to the engineers and ask what they would recommend. And I gave to you all a printout from the company or from the association that they use to give them guidance, okay? And the recommendation from that association right now is a MERV 13. So when I found that out today, that came from the engineer today, I immediately called Randy and said, let's make a phone call and let's see if we can track those down and get enough MERV 13s to put in. If you go much higher than MERV 13, it begins to cause a normal HVAC system to labor because of the constriction. And it will actually slow the air movement. And what we need to do is to maintain a fairly good flow and not freeze up our systems, okay?
And one of the things that I was a little concerned about that you answered, and I told you in my text to you that you answered, and that was that the windows in the schools open so they can do a draft ventilation kind of thing.
And Mr. Bushyhead, in most places that's true. To say that every window opens in every room or that every room has a window would be false. There are some windows in the brick building at the middle school, particularly on the second floor, that really need some attention. And if you open them, sometimes it's hard to keep them in their frames. And so they've been closed, okay? And that's something that we can look at. But at the same time, we do have good airflow moving through that facility now. We've struggled with the HVAC on that top floor. We had someone from Train come in, and they finally figured out how to get that outside unit working. I still think we're throwing good money after bad on that. I believe that whole system needs to be rebuilt, and we've had an engineer come in, I believe, was it this week, Kevin, that somebody came through and looked at that. But there's good airflow. The temperatures are really livable right now, and those are places where we probably could put a MERV 13 and help take care of our kids that way. Another thing that we're looking at, which is going to be more expensive, I'm pretty certain, is using UV light in our intakes. That's a technology that is available and is known to kill virus and bacteria. There is not a lot of information about whether or not how effective it is on this particular strain of the coronavirus, because it's a different strain than they've been working with than in the past. However, on the previous, like SARS, UV has been effective, UVC has been effective at killing that virus. So we're looking at how much it would cost to put those UV units inside of our returns and have a secondary form of bacterial attack, okay? But that takes a little higher level of engineering than I've got, and so we'll work on that. And of course, cost is going to be a big factor in that as well, okay?
Sounds good, and I think everyone up here would congratulate you and your staff for the work that you're doing to protect our kids.
Now, we're working very hard, and the governor opened the doors for the kindergarten through the 5th grade last week, and we've been looking at that for a week pretty extensively. We've put a lot of man hours in on that to try and come up with some suggestions for the school board, which we'll bring to them on Monday night. But at the bottom line on that is we want to give the best education to all of our students that we possibly can while keeping them and our staff safe. Right. And so there are some elements that are going to have to be in place for that, and we'll work around those. But we'll wait until Monday night to bring all of those points out. Okay? Any other thoughts or questions?
Any questions, thoughts?
Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your all support. I want you to know that Kevin has been incredibly helpful and supportive through some difficult stuff, and we wouldn't be able to function without you and without you, Kevin. And I'm not just patting you on the back because I want more money, but if it helps, I'll do it again. Okay? So thank you all.
Thank you very much. Just lay it right there. Everyone's got to be a comedian, huh? Okay. Scott?
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I guess I'll kind of start
okay.
out this discussion. So we've had a few conversations. Kenneth and I had a couple conversations about, and this is specific around tire haulers, people that are in the business of selling tires. We've had a little bit of a controversy over the past, 4 or 5 months with different haulers not wanting to stack tires in the trailer. And so I just wanted to bring Scott in to educate y'all on what has taken place and what has been in place for many years as far as people stacking their own tires in the tire trailer, and the necessity on why we have to do it that way. So that's why I brought him in to give y'all a report on that. So.
You're on, sounds like.
Questions? Anybody got questions? Well, I should have gave you this a week or two before, but it slipped my brain. But I got Cindy to give you a copy of my permit to operate the sanitation department. And I have to cross every T and dot every I, or we'll be in violation and get a fine. And if you turn to section 3, I got in trouble
Okay.
at the beginning of the year because I didn't get the email or see the email. And it says in section 3 about middle ways, it says the certified copy of permit reflects with a register seal and the date, book and page, number and record must be returned to the solid waste section within 30 days, that we have to document this at the Register of Deeds. I didn't know that, so county inspector come, and me and him went down there to get this permit to operate the landfill, at the Register of Deeds. And we went down there, and the lady at the Register of Deeds says, well, I need such and such amount of money. And I said, well, I'm from the county, and she said, well, you have to have the money in hand for us to do that. So anyway, state inspector got mad, and he said, you're going to have to shut the gates. You do not have a permit to operate the sanitation department. And I looked at the lady behind the desk, and I said, we can't shut the gates. So I run after him and told him, I said, we can't shut the gates out there. He said, well, you don't have a permit to operate. Shut them. I mean, he's got the authority. If he says shut the gates, I got to shut them. And that's going to, a great responsibility there. But I know there's been a lot of, some of the tire haulers has been complaining that we've not been helping them stack the tires. Number one, I'm short-handed. And when I've got a lot of stuff going on and we're working, we can't just stop and go help them stack tires. But if we're not busy, I do ask the guys to go and help stack tires. And what brought all this up was the tire shop up at Steve Moon's old tire shop. You guys know where that's at. They would bring tires in after my guys leave, after 4 o'clock, and they'd throw half of them in the tire trailer and the other half on the ground. And they've done that several times. And Dave, he stays from 3:30 to 4:30. My other guys leaves at 3:30. And I've went up there probably 3 times and talked to the Joe, I think's his name. And he does not want to send us these tire certificates that tells how many tires that's been brought in our tire thing. I just grabbed this one. And that's the only really trouble that I've had with the, with the tire companies. And me and I don't know the guy's name, the little red-headed feller, he got in my face, cussed me, and I backed up 3 times and got out of the way. I said, dude, if you don't stack the tires in the trailer, you're going to have to take them back. I mean, that's the, if we got time to do it, we will. If they bring in big, truck tires and stuff like that, we'll take the back of the forklift over, lift them up in the trailer and, help. But, this, I have to report all these certificates into the state so we can get our money back. The tire disposal is a free service to the community. And I talked to the state inspector, and he said, well, the tire shop up there gets sometimes truckloads of used tires, which does not get reported to the state. So then the state inspector told me that I could charge them $2 a tire for bringing them in, because they don't pay that $2 to the state. And he told me, he said, well, you're being really nice to these tire haulers out here. Macon County, Jackson County, Graham County, if you don't stack the tires in the trailer, you're banned from coming back.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I did call Mr. King because I had a tire company call me and they were complaining. And what they were complaining about is they were told that they were not allowed to get in that trailer at some point in time. I believe it was a long time ago. I don't know if that's true or not. I discussed it with Kevin. They were told not to be in there in case they got hurt or something. And if that used to be a policy, or if that has never been a policy.
Not that I know of. Mm-mm.
And the other issue was that if they do get in the trailer, the liability, which, and I spoke to Kevin on that, and he said if they hurt themselves in the trailer because of neglect from our end, then we are liable, correct?
Yeah, if there's something there that they trip over that shouldn't be there, or if there's how they get up in the trailer, if there's an inadequate handrail or way they get up in the trailer is inadequate, and they slip and fall because of that reason, their liability insurance would pick up. But just general workman's comp, our workman's comp wouldn't pick up for another person. But that's not really, their workman's comp would pick up for that. We'd just be in charge of the liability piece of it.
But I just told them I would look and see what was going on, because we just put a sign up there, didn't we, Scotty? And they weren't used to the sign.
Yeah, the sign upset them a little bit, but, when you go in the morning time and you got 100 tires laying on the ground, and then you got another tire hauler coming in behind you and say, do I have to stack all these tires too? It's working together, really, is what it does. And Ray at Smoky Mountain Tire, we've always got along together. He's always called me and said, Scott, you got a tire trailer? I'll say, no, it's full. I said, I'll call you if I get one. So I'd call him up and say, I got an empty tire trailer. And they'll bring 700, 800 tires in one day. And I'm short-handed. Stan, he works Saturdays, so he's off on Monday. And then I have to send another man up on Wednesdays, so my other man up at the top can, have a day off. And then if some guy's on vacation or if one calls out sick, then all I've got's a handful. And we dumping dumpsters and baling cardboard and doing all of this. And I told Ray, I said, man, if you don't mind, I've only got 3 guys here, trying to do the job. If you can, send 2 guys with you. And I've always got along good with with Smoky Mountain Tire, Brent, all the other ones, but that one up yonder has been a pain. And, I did make a sign. Well, that little red-headed fella, I thought we was going to fight that one day. And I backed up 3 times to get out of his way. I thought I was going to have to call the cops. I'm serious. And he cussed Dave, the one that's he stays and runs the scales. He got out there and cussed him one day. But he no longer works there. He got fired, so that's a good thing. But, that's the issue. You can read over this. There's a lot of things in here that you probably need to discuss, but maybe at a later matter. And also about the waste screenings. I got all my guys certified to do the waste screenings, and it'll tell you in the report, the things you can and cannot take. And we have to go by those guidelines that the state gives us to go by. Like paint. We cannot take liquid paint. It's got to be in a solid form. The only liquids that we're allowed to take is oil and antifreeze. The 2 things.
I'm sorry, oil
and antifreeze.
Antifreeze.
Yeah, antifreeze.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only liquids that we can take, by the permit. And I think this is a new permit to operate, and everything's usually the same, as it goes, unless, they decide to change something, which sometimes they do. But anyway.
So you have the permit to operate?
Yes.
As we're speaking, okay.
Yep. You got a copy too?
Oh, I know, but I just wanted to make sure that people who are listening know that you have that permit if we're talking about it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Along with the other thing, my question, Scotty, would be, well, I'm sure that we can come back at a work session or some other session and sit down and deal with all of this, but is there anything that we can do now to make it a little easier for you?
Yeah, hire me another man.
Okay.
I need one more employee, to break up the...
Sure.
Because I've tried, I got to give my guys up top. I've even went in on Saturdays and went up top myself and, and worked so my guys could have a day off. And also we discussed, I put it in my request, because all my guys went and did the waste screening, and that protects the county. Like if somebody it's got hazardous materials and stuff in there, I got the authority to turn them away, And I have sent a few to Cherokee, because there was I think it was Al Container come in with some great big old chunks of concrete in the back of the roll-off. And if they dump that in the trailer, it's gonna bust the bottom out of it. You know, so you have to have everything separated. And I reckon that that guy that worked with Cochran come in with a big old load, had metal, had shingles, had concrete, had everything in it. I said, man, we got to keep this stuff separated. We don't have a tipping floor to go in and dump it on and to separate it out with the machine. They have to bring it in already separated. And in our contract with Kinsland Trucking, if we damage a trailer, we have to pay to repair it. And I think Jackson County's replaced 3. And they're about $100,000 a trailer. One caught on fire, you know, and burnt down. And then another one, I think, dumped a big old chunk of concrete and busted the floor out of it. And then that big packing machine rammed something through the floor of it. So, I mean, it's a great responsibility out there to, you know, to do this. And, you know, I asked, you know, before if we could give our guys a little increase for their waste screening certificates. Because it's a big responsibility. And me and Kevin Siegel, state inspector, called me and said there's an illegal dump site. So me and him went and investigated. 2 of them, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There was one down on 288.
Yeah.
It had pressure-treated wood, tires, tin, brush, everything. And we got a county letterhead, wrote him a letter, gave him so many days to clean it up. If not, then there would be a fine on top of that. And that's where the state comes in. You know, if they don't clean it up. And then there's one out lower 40, I think it was, Larka. We had to go out and investigate that. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff right here that that we have to go through, you know.
Right. No,
and I know people's going to complain, and they're going to do that. But I've got my own, you know, thing here that I have to go through, and I try to be as nice as I can and helpful as I can. And, you know, if somebody does bring something in that's hazardous, drops it off and leaves, it's ours. From the cradle to the grave, it's ours. We got to dispose of it. But if we can nip it before it gets there, then, or we can help them get rid of it, you know, through the state. And that's what we do.
Let me back up just a second. The new sign that you put up, what was the new sign that you put up?
It was about tires.
But
Well,
what does it say? I mean, what is it? What's
well, I didn't take a picture of it, but I'll get you a copy of it, though.
Okay.
I mean, I can't read it all in my brain. I can't remember all of it, but it just simply says, you know, all tire haulers that brings tire, even residents, you know, must put the tires in the trailer. Because when he come to do the inspection, he asked me, he says, why is them tires laying on the ground? I said, the tire trailer's full. And he asked me, he said, when is a tire trailer coming? I said, a couple of days usually. And he says, well, they need to go in there because it, mosquitoes. If water gets in it and stays in there for a certain period of time, it's a breeding ground for mosquitoes. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that, you know, that we've got to go through and do out there. And all my guys has got to be trained to inspect the loads and make sure there's nothing hazardous coming in.
Mr. Chairman, I've got all my questions answered from the complaint I had. I have something to tell them. I mean, yous are willing to help them if yous aren't too busy.
Yes.
And they need to stack their tires, and they don't need to be harassing or cussing
Employees.
Scotty or other employees.
Well, I mean, that one guy done it 3 or 4 times, but I have to, LCID landfill I have to take care of, go out there and push brush and bush hog and weed eat and do all that stuff, so I can't be there all the time. And Dave, he's my second in command, and yeah, he told me, he said, Scott, come out here and look at this. I went out there and looked, and his tires stowed everywhere. He said he come in about 10 minutes after 4 and left, you know.
And if they get hurt because of our negligence on insurance, then we're liable, but on theirs, that's part of their job. One thing that the man who called me and complained about was the tax he pays or charges customers disposal fee. That's what this sheet is, correct?
Yep, that goes into the
This is how we
state.
get our money back from the
Yep,
state.
exactly, yep.
From the disposal fee. So
And
it don't,
it never breaks even. I mean, we don't,
right.
there's no making money. We actually supplement it, so even the tax we get from, through the Department of Revenue, we don't break even on this program.
Well, lots of people don't buy their tires in Swain County, and that's the only ones we can collect is, that's who pays the disposal fee, correct? If they buy
We-
tires in the county?
No, we do it per capita, so we get the allocation each quarter on a per capita basis, so it depends on your population. So it doesn't really, he's logging it in, it's kind of a cross-reference because they do it by per capita, but then they take every report like that right there, and they pretty much add them together, and it'll tell them where people are taking their tires to get, because people will go to like Sam's or wherever and get a set of tires. Well, that'll be in Buncombe County, that's not coming here, but they may be from Swain County. But they'll take all those reports and cross-reference them with the amount of money that's distributed statewide and kind of get an average.
So we don't just collect the disposal fee that they take in, correct?
Correct, but even on our per capita basis, we still do not break even.
Kevin, this will be for you, King. If we've got our staff being harassed, and we know the company from which they come to dispose their tires, can we, either the board or the manager, address a letter to that company, to whomever, unless they own the company, telling them that we can't have our staff harassed and threatened?
Yeah, most definitely.
And if we have not already done that, then I think we need to do that.
Okay. This has not been a problem, and for that one incident, that was back in like May,
Yeah,
and I don't think it's been an ongoing problem. And so I think that one instance, or maybe two instances, I think it's kind of calmed down since then. But then we had a question, I think, and that's what Kenneth and I were talking about. There was another hauler, not the one they're talking about, early on, but another hauler had questioned, why are we doing that? And that's why I wanted him to come in, not necessarily for that first incident that happened. I think that's kind of cleared up. I don't think they're not coming in every day, because I know they bring in tires at least once a week. I don't think they're harassing her. I would have definitely heard about it before now. So,
But I think that we need to have a, quote, policy
I agree.
that we don't tolerate that under any circumstances. We don't need our staff harassed. We don't. And that's just a statement from me to you at this particular point.
Okay.
You were going to ask something?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. One, how many tires do you take in a month, you think? I mean,
well, it just depends on
It's
when they decide to bring them. And, sometimes they'll haul 5, 6 trailer loads.
and
you
they
know.
just sporadically bring them in.
I mean, just, usually when one tire hauler starts, they all start coming,
And
one
how many
right
tire
after the
haulers
other.
do we have, do we know?
So, and even the state inspector said I could plan a day that they could bring their tires.
That's what I was
Or
asking.
how many tires they can bring in at one time, but I've never done that.
I was asking if we could maybe look in planning a day, and maybe some of you guys leave at 4.
Oh,
Maybe really just
well,
kinda-
they leave at 3:30.
Well, really just kind of pushed, and after 3:30, we don't take tires, we take tires from 7, whatever time you
From
guys.
7 to 3:30, yeah.
Till 3:30, and that would kind of help you out as far as not having somebody there. And then maybe you could look at a couple of days a week those are tire days. I mean, you can always have people just bring tires from their house, but if these haulers are bringing in, then they can kind of schedule and make sure that they're getting there when you know they're there. And they
And
know
yeah,
what's going on.
I think you're
bringing
correct.
that
We're
up.
talking tire haulers, not individuals.
Exactly, yeah.
And bringing the
Tire haul.
individuals up like residents, that's on there too.
Yeah.
We could charge them
Somebody
$2
bringing
a
couple
tire for
tires,
bringing
though,
them
I
in.
don't think it's gonna be your problem. It's gonna be the ones that brings a truckload of tires. There's your
Right.
problem.
Yeah, but see,
That's what I'm hearing, anyway.
see, when you talk about residents, see, even the state inspector said I could charge them $2 a tire or $3 a tire for bringing them in, but we don't. Why? That's gonna cause a problem. What are they gonna do? They're gonna throw them off the bank somewhere.
Right.
And then
Well,
guess who
and-
gotta go clean it up?
And
I
I think,
do.
yeah, and my question was going to be, because I think I bought tires, and I paid the $2 per tire.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we come and have to bring some out there and then have to pay an extra $2, that just doesn't make sense to me. So we need to do something to get this ironed out and make it functioning the way it should be and can best
Yeah, I wish
function.
some of my guys would've come with me. They would've, you know, verified what I had to say, but
Well, I don't think you need verification. I just think that we need to be able to discuss this so that we can either put up signs or put up ads. The recommendations for those needs to come from the manager to us, and we need to approve them. So that's the only thing that I'm saying is that, you know, once you and your guys figure out what you think would work, bring it here. He's going to edit it and look at it anyway, and then he'll bring it to us, and we'll edit it and look at it again, and then we hope to have something that you can work with. I mean, obviously, it's going to be a lot better than what you got right now. And Kevin, I thank you, because I think that's an excellent suggestion. Not just as long as you're open, they can bring in these tires. They create such a problem, so we've got to limit how they come in. And maybe it's a per tire amount per tire hauler. And so, but that's the kind of thing that just needs to be worked out and talked about and looked at and measured to see if we can do that, because I think that you're absolutely correct, and that's one of the things that we have seen is people do just toss them off the bank. You know, I mean, $2 is not much, but you know, you get 80 tires off the bank, that's a good bit of money that you and your staff have to go take care of.
yep.
So,
I mean, it does. I mean, you can start one thing and cause another problem, but, you know.
right.
But
And that's why I think that if you and Kevin can get together and come up with some things.
well, we have to go by the
If
state
you and Kevin
requirements.
can get together and come up with some things,
We'll
then
do
we
that.
can bring it in here and we can look at it. And the first thing for me is that, you know, if they don't like the rules, come tell us how to change them.
I don't make the rules.
No,
State
no,
does.
that's what I'm saying. You know, if they don't like them, then that's where they gotta go, to what the state says. And so, you know, and we get several instances of things where people come in talking to us, but we have absolutely no control over it. And they've got to meet with state legislators, not county commissioners. So, okay, is that good? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to kind of make sure I get a point across that I don't think we're coming in here to ask for any special fees or anything like that. What he was saying was there was a tire hauler that sells or is in the business of selling used tires or slightly used tires. And so on a used tire, they don't accept the $2 fee that they send into the state of North Carolina that comes back around. And so what he was saying was on that specific tire dealer that sells only used tires, we have the ability to charge the $2 per tire.
Right.
If an individual comes in with a used tire, technically we can charge them as well because they're supposed to be giving that to whoever they buy their new tires from. But some people, you know, like to keep their old tires for whatever reason, and then they bring them in. I don't think we're pushing for that either. I think that, you know, the waste fee should be able to handle the $2 or how many tires they've got. But I do think that we do need to look at protocol and procedure, and if a tire hauler is not willing to go by the rules, then we do need to address that situation with them independently.
Yes, I agree, and I hope I didn't confuse the issue that much, but that's what I'm saying. We can always send them to Graham or another county.
Cherokee, yep.
That's a joke, Graham, that's a joke.
Mr. Chairman, may I
So,
ask,
yeah.
Scotty, has there been any more incidents since that one incident? Because all I had was a phone call asking, questioning the sign and stuff, and I just told them I'd find out. I didn't know nothing about it, and a long time ago, I don't even remember how long ago or anything. Maybe they were told that. I didn't know. I just asked and see, and that's why, pretty much why we had this, because it wasn't the same people, is why the call I got was from somebody else asking specifically about the sign. But as far as, has there been any more incidents? Has everything been going fine? So there's
Yep, everything's
probably
been
not a
going
real
good.
issue.
Stan and Ed went the other day and helped, I think Brent works up there across from the hot spot. I told the guys, I said, if you ain't busy, help, you know. I can't pick up one of them great big old tractor trailer tires and stick it in there, you know, and we do. We bring the or the forklift over, and we lift them up and stick them in there. And I ask them, I say, bring 15 big truck tires. That way we can put a layer of big truck tires on the bottom and throw the little truck, because I want to get a whole trailer load. You know, they charge us $1,700 a load for tires. And so we like to get a whole trailer load in there.
Well, and the incident, although it's one incident, and I understand that, just gives me the opportunity to say that we won't have our staff harassed. So, and that's the main point that I'm trying to make with that. And so, any other questions?
Just over the holidays, you have any problem? On those one day I drove by, you had a few bags of trash out.
Well, when we opened the borders back up, that's when the trash started piling back up at the gate.
Filling up the gate. Do you have cameras at the gate to see who's doing that?
Yes, and we caught a guy, threw 3 bags of trash out, and waved at the camera, got in his truck and left. And then a week later, he wrote a piece in the paper saying that our hours was not convenient for them. And we got a video of it. And one of the sheriff's deputies come down and got the little, what do you call that, little
Yeah.
Little thing. Ain't heard nothing else about it.
Sheriff, are you familiar with that?
I really couldn't hear what you were saying.
Okay. There was obviously a person who was dumping trash outside of the trash barrier. Happened a couple of times. A deputy came down and got the card out of the video, but nothing else has transpired regarding that.
You know which one came got her?
No, it's been a little while ago.
We'll just have to check on it and see. I mean,
If
that could be a littering charge or illegal dumping, which is in essence littering. That's a pretty hefty fine if it goes to court. That's about a $400 fine.
If you don't mind, sir, would you get to see, just see what you can find out on that particular issue? Would
If you
appreciate
can
it.
give me a date, I can go back and look on it.
Appreciate it, Sheriff. Thank you. Anything?
I think that's it.
Okay. Anything else? Any other
Well,
questions?
we don't charge as much as a lot of our surrounding counties when it comes to disposal out there. And I would like to see, it just takes a few bad apples, if you will, to kind of ruin it for everybody. So I'd like for us to encourage good behavior in these people so that they don't ruin it for everybody. That's all I have to say.
Anything else on this issue, Jim? Scotty, we thank you.
Thank you.
And
You guys have a
think you're
good
doing
evening.
a good job out there as well. So
We're doing our best. But what about my new man? You gonna hire me another man to help us?
we'll be talking about that, I'm sure. So,
Okay, and also about the waste screening. You know, we talked about giving them a little raise for getting their certificates for that. I mean, it's a great responsibility, and we've got to keep the county running. I mean, that got to help out a whole lot.
I've known salesmen, Scotty, who talk themselves out of a sale. We're very much aware of what you need, and we appreciate you coming in, we appreciate you talking. And obviously, those issues you have will be discussed, so,
Right. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
thank you, Scotty. You want to take the variance, the next
Yes.
item?
So Swain County has a flood variance request. And so we do have a flood zone and a flood map that's done by FEMA, which y'all have approved, or a previous board has approved at one point or another. And so there's a process within the ordinance that if a person comes to request a variance, this board can grant a variance based on the circumstances. This particular request is from Miss Grace Myers. She did not write this letter that's here with you now. She's 89 years old. She lives at 180 Florida Avenue in Bryson City. The reason that she is requesting a variance at her home is because she is disabled and is in need of additional space in her bedroom. So the only really suitable action by her contractor was to add on additional space, additional square footage to her home. And so the building enforcement folks could not grant that because she is in the flood plain. And so that's where this request is coming in at. And she is just requesting, you can kind of see the map behind this. I think there's a couple copies of it, one aerial. You'll kind of see where it's at with other homes around it. But it is on Florida Avenue, and I'm trying to think where that is. It's, I think it's off Ash Lane. Is it near Ash Lane?
Above Ash Lane, that next.
Okay, it's right above Ash Lane, next to Camp Living Water, I believe.
Just past Living Water, yeah.
Yeah, so, anyway, that's what she wanted to send in a request and to see what y'all thought about that, and she respectfully requests where she could add an addition of a 10 by 20 foot wide, 8 foot across. See, extend out 10 feet. Okay. Yeah, she wants an 8 foot by 10 foot room and a 10 foot by 12 foot deck, which the deck I don't think would matter anything on the floodway because it's a structure that water can go underneath. But the actual 8 foot by 10 foot, I think is what you're variancing on that.
Can it not be up so the water could go under that? Or does that then affect the entire house?
The problem is, and it goes back to a lot of different people's issues, is that you have to pay an engineer pretty much money just to get a flood certification to do this. And really that's at the end of the day what she wants is the waiver she wouldn't have to get that, basically, because you're waiving that for her. Because I think that just to get a flood variance, I think the cheapest one is about $1,200 or $1,400. And so this person is on a fixed income. That's, from my understanding, what the issue is.
What would be the cost of us doing this? I mean, what would be the total cost of us with the variance and other things that she may need, the engineer, the architect, or whomever?
As far as her doing it, or?
No, what would the cost be? Yes, as far as she does it, or we do it, or whatever. What was the cost?
It's an estimate. I mean, I would estimate around $1,200.
Okay.
But,
Okay,
and
so
that may not even, I think that's in the ballpark. But it may be less, it may be more.
Right.
Just depends on the circumstances.
Yeah.
So. I know we have done this in the past. It's been a long time. Most of these requests do not make it to the board, but at this time it's Bill wanted to make sure y'all are aware of this. I mean, he's all for it, he just needs y'all's approval as far as doing the variance, and he will issue a building permit, and it's all good. So,
Does that, would permitting a variance like that cause the county any liability in any situation?
yes.
Okay.
So basically with floodways and floodplains, I think this is in the floodplain. It's basically once the water's got to go somewhere. So if you permit this and there's a cavity and now you're filling up that cavity, the water's going to go somewhere else. And so other folks can go, well, you didn't allow for, where was this water going to be going now? So you'd have to open up something else. So it's kind of in that scenario. That's why you have to have the flood. It's really a flood study, I guess, more than anything. It's what's going to happen to the water.
How could this happen?
Yeah.
You were saying something a moment ago, Kevin.
It's actually in the floodway.
It's in the floodway?
Yeah, I pulled it up.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
okay.
in the floodway, okay.
Yeah,
The
This
floodway
is not
versus the flood
plain.
plain, what's the difference?
And the floodplain is the 100-year floodplain. You can actually build in a 100-year floodplain, you have to have what Kevin was talking about is a elevation certificate, which runs from 700 to 1,200 according to use. Then you have to build above that, and anything below that has to be engineered foundation with flood vents. In the floodway, you get into more of a little stringent. It's more stringent because you have to have what's called a no-rise within the floodway. It's an engineered hydraulic calculations.
Did I understand you to say no rise?
A no-rise.
Okay.
And so that's, $5,000 to $10,000. So,
That may be the difference. Maybe it's
That's the
$1,200 just for their
yeah.
certificate.
You still have
Just
to
for
have a
somebody to
certificate,
go out
but you
there,
also have to
probably.
have this also.
I knew it was a lot of money
Yeah.
that she did not, she was on fixed income, she just didn't want to have to do.
Right. I mean, I think that's what we're talking about. Being on the fixed income, there's obviously no help coming from that area financially, I'm
Correct.
talking about.
Correct.
So we need to make a decision of whether we want to, what all would that entail long-term, being in the floodway? I mean, if some
Essentially, what
culverts-
she's in the floodway, that area, as Kevin was saying, the floodplain, you can build in the floodplain because they understand that in the floodplain, you're not affecting anything else. But when you get in that floodway, then you are pushing the volume that you take up is going somewhere else.
Right.
So it could affect the neighbor, it could affect someone across the stream. So that's why it's a lot more stringent on that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
but this is from an ordinance that we passed.
It's an
To
ordinance
join the
that,
flood-
that the county passed. Now, the ordinance was not drafted by the county. I think it is a standard FEMA ordinance. When we accepted their flood mapping, we approved the ordinance. So,
That wasn't that long ago either, was it?
It's been several years ago.
2010 was the last
10 years ago, right?
update that we did per mapping.
Because I remember coming to the meetings whenever because I was against the
Yeah.
ordinance, because it done things, liability as far as pushing the water somewhere else. If it's
Right.
flooding that bad at that spot, it's gonna be bad for everybody in that area to begin with. She needs this apparently for her handicap need. I have
Well,
no
just for living, obviously, the way I read it.
I have no
That's just-
problem waiving it, but is this an ordinance we can go back and look at also?
When this is not needed,
That's an open-ended question, but we can look at it. However, I don't know if we can change it. And the reason is because if you do not approve the floodplain mapping that is done by FEMA in the state of North Carolina, then anybody that's in the affected areas cannot buy flood insurance
From
through the
FEMA.
National Flood Insurance Program. So it's a delicate balance on what you can and can't do and what you would want to give up versus what you wouldn't.
Would that be a permanent relinquishment? In
If-
other words, if, it can't be until, because you would be taking down whatever was put up after she passes.
Well, what she's talking about is basically an 8-foot by 10-foot permanent structure that is not going to be taken down. I mean, it's going to be a part of the
Okay.
home.
All right. That answered my question. Thank you. Yeah, that answered it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
just a couple quick comments and a couple questions. I've been in touch with Ms. Meyer several times. She's an interesting person. She feels the need to do that. She needs some home care help that lives with her, and she just needs more room in her place. Is basically what it boils down to. But she's right on Deep Creek, and so that's the whole issue with being in the floodway. So that's kind of the comments. I've been in touch with her 3 or 4 times on the phone. She has my number, I promise. And I think I've been in touch with Kevin one time when she called, and Bill, and so now that's comments. Now to the questions. What is the upside and what is the downside?
Right.
I mean, just kind of bottom line. What's the upside to it? What's the downside to it if we decide to do it?
To be honest with you, I don't know. The upside is you're helping out an individual that needs some help. The downside could be if there was a major flood at some point in the future, and they found out that you did have a variance and it did create an environment that's going to flood other homes, then there probably is a certain amount of liability. Now, judging by the amount of homes up through there, is some of these structures ever been permitted? Probably not. Some of the stuff has been added on, I'm sure, that would also do the same thing. But now you're documenting it. So that's my only caution to the board. You're going to be voting on this. And so now it's documented that you have given a variance, or you're possibly going to give a variance to somebody. So it could open you up for some liability, not necessarily now how much, an 8-foot by 10-foot really piece, because the deck, water can go underneath the deck. So it's really just 8-foot by 10-foot structure at this point. I can't give you a liability gauge. There's no liability gauge here because it would end up in I'm sure it would go to a FEMA, probably like some sort of a FEMA procedure. If there was some sort of if she's got flood insurance, she might not get as much back because she had a variance. I don't really know the process because it's never happened, really.
But if we were to do this, it would appear to me, and I'm just making this statement, it would appear to me that any of the neighbors could almost say that variance is what created the flood in their home. Because you're turning the water in a whole different direction.
It could. I mean, has it ever been done like that before? Certainly. There's certain, and so we've never really dealt with this a lot. The town has over the years dealt with a lot more variances inside the city limit. I know we've always had thoughts about like below the bus garage, where they did that filling in down there. That created a humongous problem for the bus garage, because if we did get a significant flood, all of that water now is diverted. Well, where's it going to go? It's going to go right back in our facility. But they granted that variance. So, I mean, you can look at examples all the way in Bryson City, especially in Bryson City Common, where that has taken place. You can probably look up Deep Creek, where that has already taken place throughout the years. This is just, she's trying to do it probably correctly, and this is kind of where we are. But it has been done by other governmental agencies have given variances with the same potential liability that you are.
Right. Kevin, give me your take on this. You think you were just gonna raise issues, didn't you, Seth?
Yeah. I'll say this, I'm 100% for private property rights. But this ordinance has really kind of got, it's got a hold on that. It's throughout North Carolina, 100 counties participate in this ordinance. There's some that held out at one time, and Graham County was one of those. And so they were going to not just lose people who have flood insurance will be lost, but also lose any kind of FEMA money that would ever come into the county. As far as if there was a flood here and we didn't have this ordinance, FEMA could come in and say, you're on your own. In saying that, I think that there is some liability to it because this is a floodway. If it isn't a floodplain, it's a little less. I can say, honestly, I could figure out how to make it work, but floodway is a little harder because of that. And you have neighbors, and so while she's 89, and I'd love to go up there and just do this for her. When you talk about age, you can't use age as a factor, and you can't use health as a factor. Sounds good in theory, but exactly, there may be a 20-year-old that lives right beside of her and wants to do the exact same thing. What are we going to do then?
Right.
And
Kevin,
I hate
I don't
that.
know if have you seen this house?
I know it. I kind of know where it's at. Yeah.
Roger, have you seen it? Is it on a crawl space? I've not been up to it. I don't know.
Oh, I don't remember that.
I mean, is it elevated at all?
I have not seen it since this has happened. I used to go up there about 2 or 3 times a week for 30-some years, but not, on that road, but.
But if it was on a crawl space of some sort, would there be any building mechanism or building method that you could elevate it and have an open cavity underneath the structure?
It's like saying if it's in the floodplain, I can figure that out.
But you still got to get a no-rise and all that
That
stuff?
floodway's got her locked in. That's kind of that's the problem. Because in a floodway, all you have to do is build above the BFE, the basement elevation. And you can do that. You just have to have that certificate of elevation and show that you are above it with flood openings or pilings or whatever. But we have some of them on Nantahala on the river. We have all kinds of examples of it, but the floodway is the one thing that doesn't really give you that option.
Just a quick estimate, and I realize it's just an estimate. How high would that have to be in a floodway, or could you even do it in a floodway?
Well, the height of it, she's probably looking at, she's less than the elevation of the main road. So she's probably 2 to 3 feet, maybe 4, most. That's just the estimated guess.
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir.
Those are mostly retirement homes all along the creek. That's why they're there. And across from them half that road is a pasture, and a couple more homes as it curves up. So I don't know if that takes into account that, in crawl space or whatever. I know the neighbor across the creek from her is in favor of her doing it. I've talked to him a couple of times as well. I don't know about her neighbors along beside her on the same road.
That neighbor's thought is that this should be done for her.
Yes. I think they're close friends. They live across the creek from each other, but they're close friends. They know each other, and I I think he's in favor of it because he just thinks she needs the help. But I don't know that he knows all the stuff that we're discussing now,
Right.
which,
Which basically goes back, if a major flood come back, and if it does, it's gonna wash them all away. I don't even know the science in saying that house diverted it. It's a big flat area, right? Correct?
it's one of the middle houses.
But it's in a big flat area. If the water gets up there diverting it, that's a minute liability to me. I do not see them now with her FEMA insurance. Does she have it?
I don't know.
Does she have flood insurance? And I would still like to look at that and see how many people in this county has the flood insurance throughout the county, because I know in other areas, this has caused other problems in other areas that have been in the floodplain or maybe in the floodway for other citizens in the county that need to do something and can't without getting an engineer and doing a whole bunch of extra to do it. So I would definitely like to look at it. I still don't see the liability being that major. Is it gonna hurt us? Or what? A variance isn't gonna, they're not gonna say it's not gonna hurt. You just said Bryson City has gave variances and lots of them.
They have given a lot throughout the years.
So
We inherited those.
if we give a variance to her, and I'm not using her age or nothing, to me, if she needs a wheelchair and this is something she needs, it is different than other issues. Because if she needs it in her home, she needs the space. I mean, I believe she should be able to do it. But that is also my opinion. But I would also like to look at the ordinance as one of the ordinances we need to look over and see.
Would you, until we gather some more information, do we want to table this or do we want to push it tonight?
I think we need to table it. Maybe collect a little bit more information on it. Maybe you guys get more familiar with what I'm talking about. I've been doing this for 15 years, so.
We can go get some pictures of it and give you more insight on kind of the area that we're talking about. Also, one of the things, so like bill inspection is very attuned to this. Every so often, and I'm not sure how often the flood inspector comes through.
5 years.
Every 5 years. He comes in and does an audit of every single permit that's been issued within a floodplain or floodway and make sure that the proper paperwork has been documented. So we are audited on it. So it's not something that you're going to just bypass.
When was the last inspection?
2015, so we're due.
We're due.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir?
this is the first time it's been brought to us as a body. I mean, some of us have been aware of the issue, but as a board, the first time. So yeah, I think it'd be fine, maybe my suggestion, we table it till we get more information, get more pictures, see what is currently there now. Crawl spaces, whatever may be able to do to lift it above a few feet above the water or make it equal to the floodplain instead of floodway, or however that works, Kevin. But I would suggest maybe we table it to get a little more information.
I say this, if we were to give this variance to this lady in the floodway, I would think that we'd also maybe try to at least raise it above that base flood elevation and keep what's below as open as we can. That
Right, yes. I mean, that seems to be the main issue is,
exactly, because if we just done it and said, hey, you just put whatever you want there, it might, I think that opens up a little bit more liability. If we did the variance, if we was to do the variance, and I think we could issue the variance with the stipulation that base flood elevation, above the base flood elevation, and what's below base flood elevation, at least has a flood fence or something like that in it.
It would appear to me that one would have to be specific in the variance as to what would be tolerable. And the crawl space would have to be 3 feet at least, you know, something like
Yeah.
that, so. Roger, you did not make a motion, but I would be willing to entertain a motion to table this till the next meeting so that we can get this bit of information that we need to do. It'll also give me a time, or enough time to get up there and take a look at it myself, which I'd love to do.
Sure. Well, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we table this then until we receive a little more information on it.
We have a motion on the floor to table until we receive more additional information. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor to table this until we get and gather more information on what we're really talking about here. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, 4-1. And I will ask Kevin to go with me. I want to look at the possibilities of directions of water coming down. But if we're requiring a crawl space of 3 feet or whatever,
Yeah.
but the neighbors is what my concern is.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on the agenda. Solid waste ordinance fee schedule. We have that, don't we?
Should have a new copy of that.
Yeah.
It's the one in red. So this is something we started back in, I think, July. And then I think in August, I brought a copy of this with some additions in the red. Did send this to Kim Carpenter, the county attorney, and she did look over it. Said it met the specifications for a fee schedule for the ordinance. And she didn't add anything extra to it. So at this point, I'm just kind of needing direction. Do you want to put this in and adopt it for January 1st? Do you want to look at it a little bit more and tweak it any additional? Or just, I just need a direction from the board on what next. You can also, if you'd like to, I know we are going through a revow process, we can kind of table this and let, you know, the revow part hand off, and we can do it all at the same time, as long as it's before bills go out, which will be next July, hopefully, or August. So you have a little bit of time, but you just have to retro it back effective January the 1st. And that way it really clears that up for the folks. I will say, and I've said this before, so sanitation fund is an enterprise fund. It is in deficit, and it has been in deficit, and will continue to be in deficit. The fee needs to be higher, whether we get that from the residential fee or the commercial fee. We're about $120,000 in deficit currently. If you do add any additional personnel or you give anything extra, that's just going to make it more. So we do get written up by the state every year because of that issue. With it being an enterprise fund, it's kind of like a sewer and water fund that municipals operate. So just wanted to mention that. And I mean, we can talk about the other parts of this fee structure before you go ahead and adopt it. We may want to tweak some of the other ones during the process. So we can definitely hold off on a while and let y'all think about that, and once we get the revaluation process going and over with, then you can reset the rate however you see fit.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Kevin, this reduces actually some of the multi-business establishments cost, right?
It does, but if you look at really how many of these particular ones there are, there's not that many. I mean, there's probably less than, what's on my hand, less than 5. So it's not, it was just taking care of a specific type of business, and we actually, because of the ordinance does say, and the fee structure does say, it goes by structure. And so we actually waived his fee. We released it because of the wording of the ordinance. So we weren't really collecting it anyway. So this is, well, actually, it is technically an increase. What happened, and I know what, I just want to state it for the record, what kind of caused us to look at it is we had a taxpayer that had a multi-use business. They had 4 different or 5 different businesses underneath one umbrella about the size of this room here. And basically, each business was in cubicles. And so when that business sold, or when that building sold, the new tenant or the new owner was charged $300 per business, because that's what had been directed to the tax officer. That's what the tax office interpretation of the ordinance was. And so he appealed it, saying that's not what the ordinance says, and he was correct. That's not what it said. It said whatever, a business that's in a building. But they already always done it by a business, period. And so this just defines that piece of it, and it does give, you know, a structure for how many square footage a business operates. And so that's kind of why we did this. It wasn't, and it's negligible what we'd be losing or gaining. I don't think we'd be losing anything. I think it would actually be gaining a little bit, but not a significant amount either. So.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question for Mr. King. So we're in deficit now, and what we need to know to adjust for the deficit is how much we're gonna be in deficit. Do you have an expectation of how much? Can you tell me how much we were last year, so we can know, as we look at this, what we might need to do to, if we have to increase some fees or something, we need to tell people why. We need to explain it to them why. But like you said, it's supposed to be an enterprise fund. It's supposed to pay for itself.
Correct.
And we have other issues that's gonna be coming up, maybe not. ConMet being gone, that takes some revenue away for cardboard, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we still have quite a bit of cardboard, but that takes a whole lot away. So can you fix some numbers to show us a little better?
Yeah.
Of what other things here we can look at to maybe adjust on and to explain it a little better?
We can. I'll give you the up-to-date numbers as of June 30th. We are going through an audit process right now, so we'll have up-to-date numbers. And like I said, we can tackle this, you know, after the first of the year, and then after the reval's getting ready to give you all a number, and then we can kind of tackle it at the same time if you'd like to, and that way we'll have up-to-date numbers and really try to set a rate.
Yeah, I think that's a big good idea to get some numbers, because I think we talked about this one time before. This fee schedule is kind of pretty much like 20 years old, really, right?
Correct.
So we're not going to fix it in 1 year. I just don't see that happening. So I think we're probably looking at a plan of multiple years down the road to get us back out of the red and into the green. But I think that's probably, so we got to have some numbers to say, we're here, but in 4 years, 5 years, whatever, this is where we need to be. So that's kind of the way I feel.
And adjusting the schedule based on that as
Yeah,
well.
periodically until we get there. because, again, you ain't gonna fix a 20-year-old fee schedule in 1 year. If you do, you probably have everybody in this county mad at you, us.
Okay, so do I hear a motion in that you will accept, tabling this until January? And that gives everybody a chance to gather the information and look at the information.
I'll make a motion, we table this till January, till Kevin comes back with some numbers, and we can look at it and maybe get a plan together.
Okay, good. All right, we've got a motion on the floor. You have a question?
I have a question. Will that be, when will the reevaluations come through? Should we table it till then?
When's your reval due?
Well, the numbers will be effective January 1st. We can start discussing it in January because it's a separate enterprise, and we can kind of shoot a figure, because it's not, we'll know how much expenses are running, because your expenses keep running up. I mean, it costs more to take it, garbage to Georgia. That's where it goes. So, you know, the haul bills continue to rise, the amount of tonnage continue to rise. So, but I'll have a pretty accurate number in January, that we can start the discussion. But you can actually wait to set the rate until you get the reval completed, which will be on up in March or April. But discussion, we can do it in January.
Thank you. That answers my question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Second motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to hold this off till January, when we will begin discussion again, when we have the reval numbers to also look at, or some of them, I would assume. All those in favor, raise your right hand, please. Okay, passed unanimously. Good. Code Red funding update.
That's actually I guess the terminology is actually incorrect on Code Red. But
Oh, okay.
what it is, it's a program that the Alarka Fire Department has asked for a specific amount of funding from the county to represent 10% of what they need to match a grant. And so they're asking for $6,000, which will match a $60,000 grant from FEMA for additional air packs and needed safety equipment for their department. And they are just requesting that the county look at supplying the $6,000 match, you know, in addition to their $25,000 allocation that we already give them, plus the $15,000 operational. So I was just going to bring this up in a work session just for you to be thinking about it. There are additional resources with like PPE equipment that we've gotten through the COVID funding. And so my recommendation is that you would supply $6,000 per department for PPE equipment. That would match their grant, but it would also give the other departments the ability to buy additional fire apparatus or personal protective equipment for their agencies. And so that's kind of what I wanted to just mention tonight, and I can have that on a budget amendment if you're all right with that. It wouldn't necessarily cost the county because it is personal protective equipment.
So basically, you just brought us some information. We don't have to do anything with it.
No, I just wanted you to think about it before I stuck it on a budget amendment for at a regular session.
Yeah.
But the total cost would be, you'd probably want to include the rescue squad as well for personal protective equipment. Just give each one of them $6,000 per department. So that would be $24,000 total. And they could use it for however they want to for buying personal protective equipment.
Right, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Sure, go ahead.
I've actually talked to the fire department about this situation. That's when I kind of sent it to Kevin.
Oh.
So, they got a FEMA grant, which is a pretty good sized grant that they got. The $60,000 grant is really, I don't know if have we ever got that before? I don't think it's ever been, they've ever got it. And they're looking at buying a cascade system, which is a system where they fill the air packs. Bryson City Fire Department is the only one that has that cascade system right now. If Alarka had that cascade system, when they get that cascade system, there will be a backup system there in case they were ever needed by any other fire department. So I think they're doing a really good thing. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, good, thank you. Right. Okay, Mr. Manager, you might as well move on up into,
All right. Just have a few items here. The strategic planning process, we had discussed this back in the spring, and now it's kind of, with all the COVID stuff, we've kind of delayed everything. I wanted just to look at doing that in the first quarter of next year, maybe latter quarter of the first quarter of next year, probably in March or April, after maybe some more best practices going forward, how we could do that. There will be a lot of public, meetings and that sort of thing. So I know probably most of you already know the TDA met yesterday. Jim Brown and I went and talked to them about the current pool expansion, and basically gave them not necessarily promises, but possibilities on future expansions if they needed that. And I think I put it in there. I drew a little map with possible future expansions. I would encourage you to look back at that meeting, and but they did award the $50,000 toward the pool project. I wanted to kind of go ahead and we'd talked about asking them for additional money for county-related impacts due to tourism, and so wanted to go ahead and maybe issue a letter to them asking for additional monies for sanitation and law enforcement, because in the summertime and peak times like in October, there's a lot of people coming here, and so might be a good time to just go ahead and ask for those amounts. And I would recommend to the board we may ask for $20,000 for sanitation and $20,000 for law enforcement for the year at this point. So for the additional 40, just want to kind of get a gauge on what y'all thought about that. So.
I think it's a rightful request. I know we've talked about this before. We have a lot more law enforcement needs, a lot more sanitation needs because of tourism. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a rightful request to try to fund our deficits from that area. That makes sense to me. And
what's the TDA's, the funding compared to last year, the taxes coming in? It's higher?
It's way up, yeah.
It's quite a bit higher.
I think they have $420,000 in their checking account right now, which is the most they've ever had.
and the season's not over.
And the season's not over, correct.
Discussion, questions? Anybody got questions?
I've not got questions, but I will make a statement about this again, because I believe if we can't use that money, and we might eventually have to try to get the state to change the law about how the TDA money is used. If we can't use it for other things in the community and stuff, I don't believe we have a marketing problem. I believe we've got the casino in Cherokee, we got the national park, we've got lots of marketing things. 2/3 of that money being spent on marketing is excessive to me. I feel like it can be a self-serving board for tourism businesses, that if it doesn't help the community, that we don't even need it. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. What do we need to
I just kind of want to get a consensus. I'll write the letter.
Okay, so I think that we're all, by consensus, we're all in agreement that we pursue this. Am I correct or am I not correct? Is anybody not opposed to it?
Mr. Chairman, there may be some opposition to it on the TDA board, but I think that if we explain that it is a part of tourism, and we also explain that it's great, for me, and I spoke to one of the members at least on the way out yesterday, it's great PR for the TDA.
Very much so.
I think the community sees the benefit. I think there are members of our communities who don't feel like they have a direct, tourism doesn't directly profit them. And I think that if TDA puts forth those good efforts, that the community can see that tourism dollars are helping everybody.
Right.
So I applaud them for going ahead and passing for the swimming pool, for example. I think that's good PR for them. They're going to help us with $50,000 of our cost, and that's paid for by room tax. So that is paid for by, as we all know, I'm just stating fact, as we all know, that's paid for by tourists. That's paid for by room tax, not paid for by any of our people. So I think it's good PR, Mr. Chairman.
And I have to agree with you, Commissioner, that I think that we had a long discussion about the whole county, not just this area. And so I think this helps that process, as you pointed out very eloquently. Any other comments? Okay.
So the school did come in and give you the design plan. We are still in conversation with the contractor about that design. He's not given us a quote back yet. Of course, you know, at the end of every project, there's always some big bumps we have to go over, and some, you know, we said that we'd do this, we didn't say we'd do this, you know, back and forth. We're kind of in that realm right now. We've got a few controversies that you'll probably hear about. One is the kitchen equipment, who's going to be installing it. It wasn't clearly laid out in the contract, so that's the latest controversy. Have been in conversation with our folks at the architectural firm and also the project manager over that situation. We're trying to work it out. So, but there is a controversy. And so hopefully in the next few days we'll solidify that and kind of get that back in the routes. As far as this plan here, I don't know if they don't come back with a quote very soon, we may have to do a subcontract out and try to get somebody else up there to do it, because we can't just sit around for months at a time and wait on a quote, you know. So we'll just have to see how that flows. The other part to the school that I wanted to touch base on, of course, is the HVAC system at the middle school. They did have to bring in, you know, rental units up there. It is a pretty critical thing. They're looking at trying to refurbish the interior air handlers to acquire the necessary equipment outside. So basically, if you switch Freons, you pretty much switch the guts of an air handler, besides the fan. You can keep the fans, but just the basically it's a condenser. It's a condenser, or I imagine like a radiator. It's a radiator. And so anyway, we're working on it. We did have an engineer here on Monday, and so they went up there, and then they also came to this building. They're doing an assessment of this one as well, and trying to give us the best thing moving forward for this also. So anyway, with that being said, there's a lot of different funding sources that have been in play on this entire project at the high school and at the middle school. We did have an increase in Article 46 in the last year, additional monies that have come in. Between that and some of the savings within the high school project, we'll definitely have a possibility of paying for any of the problems up at the high school, or sorry, at the middle school. The estimation is $125,000 for that particular project. The high school is, of course, the $160,000 plus the $90,000 we had for the data cabling. And so between those two, I think we can still work it out within the grant document or the grant budget, and also the $2.6 million that we borrowed for the project. So I think it's all going to work out. It is getting kind of down to almost to the end of it, so hopefully it's going to get a little bit easier. We have talked about and have been in conversation with the school about their broadband initiatives and the necessity for the Plan C kids that are totally online, and kind of moving forward, what does that mean? And all this COVID, has done is really put underneath the spotlight that our broadband and our accessibility to internet is inadequate. And so I think that working with providers in the best way we can, the most legal way we can, and I guess that's where it comes back to, is we got to be creative and think outside the box. And one of those thought processes is to kind of build on what the school has done with the mobile hotspots, but then attack the valleys that, or the people that don't have accessibility to your cell towers and other infrastructure that's already in place, to really maybe help them as well. And so maybe an initiative with the school to help provide some of the installation costs, because I look at it as barriers. What is the barrier? The barrier is, well, it's going to be the installation cost, and it's going to be the monthly charge. So if you can eliminate or at least help with one of those barriers, then the probability of that provider moving in to pick up that area is going to be a higher probability, because they're going to run off volume. And so even though we can't necessarily get involved with broadband, we're not planning on it, we can partner with other agencies, other nonprofit agencies, other schools, the school system, to maybe work through that process. So that's another plan that I'd like to bring forth to y'all, possibly next month in a budget amendment, to partner with the new nonprofit that was done by the advisory board, or work with the school system independently moving forward. And also using, that can be COVID-related expenses as well. So it's not costing the county anything, but we just can't get directly involved with broadband. But indirectly we can. So
On that,
yes.
I have in my mind something about the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners and their work were pushing or looking at changing the law so that counties could get more involved in that kind of thing. Do we have any understanding of what that status is of that? Have they dropped it? Is it moving? What's going on? Do we know?
It's part of their legislative goals currently, and it probably will be in the next one. So
Okay.
I know that's probably the single most largest goal that they've got. So I know it's going to be on the forefront. The problem has been, and like back in 2009, it kind of took the curve. It's when it took the curve. Before that, counties could get involved any way they want to. We could own a cable company. We could own a fiber company. But in 2009, there was a bunch of lobbyists, telecommunication lobbyists, that said you shouldn't be getting involved with our stuff. And that's kind of what happened. There was a lot of lobbying going on. And so basically it's slow getting back. This last piece of legislation that went in 2018 has helped, but it's not opened the door fully. It kind of gets you halfway in, but it doesn't really do what it needs to be doing. And so hopefully this next session we might see, I think COVID this issue has opened up a lot of dialogue with legislators about what needs to happen, especially in rural North Carolina. And I think hopefully with additional great grant money, I think it's up to $30 million now, and I think it's an additional 15 next year. So I think there's a lot more money flowing into it.
They just put 20 and added 20 to it here, 2 weeks ago.
So yeah, they've used COVID money to actually supplant some of the great grants also. So.
One of the things that I'm thinking is that we are members of the NCACC. We need to be doing something, writing letters to legislators or whatever in support of some of the goals that benefit us directly that organization has. And even assigning a couple of phone calls to us as commissioners. But we need to do something is the only point I'm making. Okay, go ahead.
Next thing, courthouse planning. I think I mentioned this last month just indirectly. I've got some draft plans that I would like to give to y'all next month at the thing. You can come in my office and look at them right now. They're very preliminary. I just want to give you kind of the thought process. These have all been fully designed as far as the floor plan. They're not, 3D or anything like that. As far as the elevations, what it's going to actually look like, but it does have the floor plans. I would encourage you to just stop by my office. We can put it out on the table and let you look at it. It is pretty different, I guess is what you'd say. It basically takes over where Riverfront Park is. And so I wanted y'all to see it before we got too far into the planning part of it, to looking at that. And then,
does it add to the present building footprint?
Yeah.
And how much? Is it
about
about half
20,
again, or?
It's 24,000 square feet.
Okay. Yeah.
That building is 30,000, so
you're almost adding another building.
roughly about 80% more capacity. Yeah.
Okay.
Had a meeting with Southwestern Commission, Region A, and the Dogwood Trust, talking about different needs in the community. And one that has been identified with all the 7 western counties was affordable housing, and that one and broadband, of course. So they're the ones. The Dogwood Trust is the ones that initiated the match for Southwestern Commission to be the HUD group. So that's starting up. I know there was some dialogue. We've talked about affordable housing. Roger and I have talked about the need to capture more of the Foursquare money for different stuff. We've got a lot of needs. We've got people that, we've got disabled people, elderly people that need certain services, and we need to get our fair share. I think that's what we talked about. But this will be an additional pot of money, and if we can maybe look at going in with the first round of a project, I think it would be the best for us. And a project, it does require a match. It's 10% match. So if you ask for a $400,000 project, you would need $40,000. So I would like to give them a call and just request that they put us on the list of maybe the first people to write a grant through that new initiative. We can set up the board. The way it happened before, we had a board that basically took an application from the community, looked at the need of each individual to see if they met the criteria, and then ranked them. It was, I think it was a fair process, and that was set up by the state. The community development block grant folks kind of told us how to do that, and then you kind of work at it from that angle. It's I think it would be a good time. It's been several years now that we've been without that program, and it's desperately needed. So just want to get permission to at least explore talking to them. So.
I don't think we have a problem with that. Explore.
Okay. All right. And then the final thing, I just wanted to give a shout out. We've got that community paramedic program, and we're seeing between 2 and 3 patients a week, and that's a new initiative we started January 1st, but they're doing a fantastic job. The Nantahala Health Foundation bought us a vehicle and the doctor in a box, they call it. And it's basically the technology that communicates back to the hospital in real time, and it's working out great. Yeah. So I just wanted to let y'all know that program's out there and helping the elderly and disabled. So.
Okay, very good. Can we just keep coming over?
Yeah, I had a library meeting last week. And they're moving forward they're looking right now at getting a topo of the building. They've kind of resigned to the fact that the only thing that could happen, that probably will happen, is adding on to the existing structure of where they are. They're looking at a lot of different things, but they are, I think they've already put a bid out and has somebody that's going to do the topo. And then they're also going to hire the architect to do some drawings and look at the structure and different things. So that's kind of the direction they're trying to move right now. Broadband, we did have a meeting. I wasn't able to be in on the meeting, it was a Zoom meeting. I did talk to Leonard. One of the big things was, as Kevin mentioned, they've thrown a little more money in the pot. There's another opportunity for the grants, for another granting cycle to go through real quick. I think James is going to go ahead and apply and get another grant in. We're not sure if it's open to just, the grants before was specific to just a few western counties, like 7 counties. I think these will be open, we're hoping only to tier 1 first, but we're not sure about that. But there is some more opportunities in that. The committee did get the nonprofit did receive a grant, a $5,000 grant, which I think will be working mostly to work with the hotspots in the county, also with that. So, but there's a lot of moving, and some of it's moving fast. So they're trying to get on board as quickly as possible with some of this stuff. I know Southwest Commission has been just so helpful, especially with the providers on helping write the grants and getting things moving. So we just, sometimes we forget how beneficial they are, what they do.
Yeah. Well, and I think for tonight, you could give Leonard Winchester a shout out.
Oh, yeah, Leonard, I tell you, he's just, without him on that committee, it'd be hard to have a broadband committee. He's just a wealth of knowledge, and he's a mover and shaker. He can get things done. He knows people, he knows the process, he knows broadband, and he knows where everything's at. So, yeah, Leonard is very vital to that committee and a big part.
Well, the whole committee, but I was just lifting him up because he's done some great work recently.
He does a lot of the behind-the-scenes work.
Right. Great. Thank you, Dan.
I really don't have anything to report, but I do want to report something.
Okay.
I don't know if you're aware or not, but there's a lot of people moving to Swain County.
I've heard that before, yes.
I talked to realtors, best year they've had in 14, 15 years. So the reason I'm saying that is law enforcement, EMS, sanitation, all these things are going to start really getting bigger. And so that's part of our strategic plan, is to be aware of what's going on.
And also the letter that Mr. King is drafting with the TDA to help us expand some of these services.
So I just want to keep that in our minds, and then aware that the next 3 or 4 years, you're going to see the COVID's pushed people to the mountains. And so we're going to see a lot of influx of people, not just visiting, but coming to Homestead.
Right. Good. Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you, sir.
Just a couple of things, Mr. Chairman. I attended Monday at 6 o'clock. I attended an Andrews Foursquare meeting. Productive meeting, 2.5. It was time to elect officers as well. So I was elected the new chair of the Foursquare. I don't know if that's a congratulations or condolences on something like that, but so I've got a lot of information I'm going to have to absorb and get a little more up to date on. And as Kevin had mentioned, the county manager, as he mentioned in his report, we need to try to make sure that we get as much of the money that comes back to Swain County as we can. Sometimes that money seems like it doesn't go, we have it, and somehow it doesn't get used, doesn't get to people in need. It's a long and convoluted kind of process. Anything that deals with those type of things do, Mr. Chairman, as you know, when we talk about the roads and points system and how you decide who gets help and who doesn't, and there's a lot of that goes into that process of trying to see who gets help and who doesn't. So did that, and then as we stated, also went to the TDA meeting yesterday. They had a good meeting. It was a short meeting. I think it's about 45 minutes long or something. One of the shortest meetings that I've been to attended a TDA meeting, the shortest amount of time to conduct a meeting. And other than that, just fielding a few phone calls here and there, Mr. Chairman, and discussions, and I believe that's all my report.
Very good, thank you.
All I have, I want to make sure everybody got the email from Miss Hattie Jo Taylor, the letter about the situation at the Southwestern building that's still ongoing, that we've had for years now. And I want to make sure everybody got that.
And, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. What Kenneth said reminded me of something else. They're still having paving issues out there at the building. The old Almond School, I guess it'll always be known for me, but a lot of that road, and so there's who's in charge of it. Southwestern says they aren't, and I guess we say they are, and I don't know.
Which road?
Well, it'd be the old Almond that runs right in front of the building and goes up, potholes in it and that type of thing. Just
Going
pretty
around
kind of
that's
just not paved and just
Going around to the back of the building?
Well,
Is that
even the
one?
front.
Okay.
Even just the very front, when you first cut in, it goes straight up in front of the building, in front of where the old playground would have been.
Yeah.
You're unaware of that. I just,
I've not, this is the first I've heard about it. I didn't think there was a controversy. I know that we've had controversy in the past about, encroachment of the creek and a lot of different stuff like that. We've tried some stream mitigation projects out there. DOT, from my understanding, did the last repaving on that road, because I thought the state road went all the way up to where it turned into private drive.
well,
And then the circle, or the half circle, was Southwestern's. But that actual road where the buses used to park when it was a school was actually DOT.
well, one of the dangers, and I just fell into that trap sometimes, one of the dangers is hearing one thing and thinking that it's true. It may not be a controversy. They just said that they thought that Southwestern didn't want to do any of the repairs on the road because maybe they were thinking, as you said, it's a state. The state's not doing any because it's Southwestern property.
Could be.
Or, so I may have misspoke, but
I can do some research on that.
If you would.
it's hard for them to drive around this chair. I mean, they kind of, I went up there in my truck and it wasn't as big issue, but if you have a low riding, smaller car, you kind of have to.
Those potholes are deep, and I've got a truck. So, but they're very deep, and I think that it would serve the community as well as anyone else well to have that resurfaced somewhat. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but go ahead. Was that it? Okay. I don't have much either, so, but one of the things that I did want to back up a little bit on, Manager, is we are supposed to be in process of reviewing all of the ordinances.
Correct.
I think, and I'm going to offer this just as a suggestion, that we set up a couple of special meetings so we can get some of those out of the way. And however long it takes, with one or two or three during a meeting, I think we need to do this. Some special dates of meetings to take a look at these ordinances. And following right in line with that, I've received about 4 calls regarding the animal ordinance, and when we're going to hire staff and when we're going to put somebody out on the streets. 2 of those calls were about dangerous dogs. And I merely, at this point, referred them to the health department because they deal with the dangerous dogs. And so I've asked them to call our director of the health. The other thing that I think that this group needs to talk about, and we haven't yet, but is the electric vehicle stations. I think that we're getting, I am anyway, getting requests of what we're going to do with that for the county. And I think it's a good thing simply because we have EV stations in Cherokee and we have EV stations in Silva, which means that if we get tourists in here and they're in an electric vehicle, then they have to go to Silva or Cherokee to charge their vehicles. We lose them at that point. And so we need to do more to keep them in Swain County. I think we had a discussion earlier with Mr. Lee with the DOT. And one of the things that I thought we agreed to was that road grading is really a 2-step process, and DOT, Swain County, is doing only one. And that's taking their dozer up a road, and nothing is done about the waterways or any culvert that they pull up. And that's what's creating a lot of problems, and you know.
I can speak on that too.
Okay, go ahead, just go ahead.
Yeah, so I did talk to Chris Lee
Okay.
Friday of last week. We had some conversation about one following back up with some of those projects that we had talked about, like Unahala Creek,
Right.
Mason Branch. So on Unahala Creek, they did go up there, they did scrape, and they did go back and clear out the ditches like they were supposed to. With that one, it's kind of a little bit problematic because certain areas of that road, it's almost impossible because it's so narrow. Really need additional right-of-way to make it wider. But anyway, they did do that. They did do the 2-step process from what I was told.
Good.
Mason Branch was a little bit more complicated. So they're actually having to go back up there. They're going to do some more stuff. Right now, the state, and it's because they're having budget issues, they can't buy any new material. They can only utilize what they currently have. And so they're trying to hold on to as much of it as they can. They're not trying to waste it because they don't know when they'll be able to buy again. And so that's kind of the hand they've been dealt on that one. The other part was, of course, the right-of-way issue with Jess Nation Road. They are talking to one of the major landowners there. And so it is in process. There have been a lot of dialogue going on with that particular one.
Good.
They also are looking at some additional federal dollars. There's $7 million additional dollars that has come into play for, and it's specifically earmarked for counties that have a lot of federal property, accessibility to federal lands. And so I think they're going to utilize some of that money for, or hopefully get some money for repaving the gorge area, possibly. They had tried to make some of it fit on Needmore. That's, of course, not going to happen with that piece because since it's a new project. But they may do some more repaving projects as well. I'd also mention the fact that with the federal money, if they could look at Fontana Road and doing the pedestrian bike path project that's been on the books for a long time. So, but that's the limit of my conversation. And we did set up, I told them maybe the second week in October, we would have one of those mini sessions with you and the vice chair, just to kind of go back over additional problems. And then, because he'll do it via Skype still, they're not traveling. And so, anyway, I was going to mention that to you as well. But
Okay. Good. Appreciate it. Thank you. Do we have any next steps on the Needmore area? Do we? or not yet?
He kind of threw that back to Rose Bogus, who is the planner for the RPO, or Rural Planning Organization.
Right.
And so she does not think it would be wise to split up the project like we'd talked about. I still think it would be, especially if we're going to the legislators to ask them, you know, that one piece in Swain County, it's already wide enough already, so why not just pave it up until when you get to the rock cliffs, and then leave that, you know, the middle, and then go pave the Macon County side. At least on both sides of the problem issue, it would be better travel. And I think that's, anything at this point is better than what it's got.
Right. I think one of the things that I need to do, and that's to talk to the people again up there, but get a number, if we can, of people who have actually missed the road and gone in the river. You know, they gave up some time ago on trying to have Highway Patrol come out and look at it, so. But we've been told, and that's one of the things that I want to emphasize, is that in this particular situation, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So, you know, we can go ahead and move with that. Okay, I guess I can't make up anything else, so that's all I've got.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I might want to answer or give a little more information of the charging stations for the cars, electric cars. That is an issue that the TDA is looking into.
Good. Glad to hear it. Great. Appreciate that. Thank you.
I will say that was asked for by us. So we did ask Mary Ann to just research it after the conversation with you.
Right.
So.
So, good. At least we're moving somewhere. Thank you. Do we have any public?
There was none.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's blank.
Okay. Do we have any informal discussion? Anyone, Sheriff, you want to say anything while we're here? The mic needs to be turned on, I understand.
Is that on?
Thank you.
Just want to inform the board in the past 3 months, we've had 3 major automobile crashes. One, we were T-boned. The other one, a drunk driver rear-ended one. And just this morning, the early hours of the morning, we had a tractor trailer rear-end our jail van down in Gastonia. We were transporting 3 federal inmates from our facility to Mecklenburg County, and fortunately, nobody was hurt in that one, and the first one, nobody was hurt. The other one, the second one, there was some minor injuries, but nothing major. So we were very, very fortunate in that. So
Wow, I guess so.
just wanted to put that out there so you all will know if you get any questions.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad the van got hit by a trucking company. They have the insurance to pay for it, I hope. So, I mean, I don't want anybody hit, but, you know, good. Anything else
That's
going
it.
on in your world?
We're busy.
I'm sure. Okay, Sheriff. Thank you. Any? See what happens when you push us to end early? So. It's your fault. Yeah, blame him when he's leaving, guys. Okay. If anything else? If not, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Carried unanimously. All right, good. Thank you, gentlemen. Good job. Good job.